Hey everybody, it's Jamal.
Hi, I'm Natasha.
And this is the story of how we met.
In 2009, I was actually in the process of visiting IHOP in Kansas City, Missouri. And I was on Facebook and I was just looking to connect with some men and women of God who were connected to the prayer house there. And I actually ran across Jamal's page. And at that time, he was attending Christ for the Nations in Dallas, Texas.
Yeah, and in that time I did not, I didn't see her post until this past year. And then when I began to see her post, she's posting about God and scriptures and just encouraging things. So I went to her page and I'm thinking that I maybe have known her or saw her somewhere, and I realized I had never seen this girl before. And so I kind of over time we began to connect over Twitter and just over Instagram, and eventually I just messaged her and was like, hey, how are you? I see that you have a ministry. Hey, do I know you? Do you know me? And then she responded back with it. She was just connecting with other men and women of God, and we actually had never met before. And so we kind of corresponded. We messaged back and forth, but nothing really went until this past July, when I was my July 1st of my anniversary of being in my 1 year of being in Chicago. I received a prophetic word from a lady in my church, and she said, Jamal, your wife is coming, and she's coming supernaturally. And for me, I've had a lot of words regarding my wife, and I kind of just added to the pile until the third one came after that first one of my pastor's wife telling my pastor that he needed to speak with me regarding my wife and to know what to look for because she was coming. And so I'm over his house one night, and he just began to talk about it and tell me what his wife had said, and I'm kind of like, really? And he's like, yeah, so are there any girls in your life? And I was like, no, there's nothing happening at all. And I was like, but there's this girl in California. I said, her name's Natasha. I feel like I know her. And he's like, so what's holding you back? I was like, well, number one, I think she may be taller than me. And number two, I don't know who she is. And so he's like, are you kidding me? He's like, just message her. You never know. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I got the courage to message her again. And I said, hey, Natasha, this is on Facebook message. I said, hey, Natasha, I know this is crazy. I don't do this normally. I said, but I do have clearance from my spiritual father. And I said, and I feel like I know you, and I've never even met you. And I said, I really want to know if it'd be okay for us to get to know each other better.
When I received the Facebook message from Jamal stating that he was interested in getting to know me, the first thing that really stood out was that he had sought out counsel from his spiritual fathers. And with that, it gave me that peace to actually proceed in knowing that, hey, you know what, he's just not some random guy who's just messaging some random person on Facebook wanting to get to know them. So with that, I did respond and state that I would be interested in getting to know him and that we can just take it, one step at a time.
And I was 100% confident that she was going to reject me. And I just did it more just to do it and just put my faith out there, and I had nothing, other than the fact of just the simple fact that this is an amazing girl, and I was, and so when she responded back with, hey, I'm in to get to know you better, I was floored. And so we finally, we did, I ended up getting her number, and I called her the next night. And the first time we talked, it was, literally, like I was talking to my long lost best friend. It was amazing, and we talked about everything from our stories to our, from the beginning of how we both found God and encountered God, and it was about the third night of us talking that she told me her story, and she, being 26, was still a virgin, had only been on a few dates, but never a serious relationship. She's like, I was just blown away, and at that moment, I knew that this girl was different. And, how did I know that this could possibly be the one? It was that she was beginning to literally be everything that I had prayed for over my wife. And over the past years and things that I've been believing God for. And it was just, so from there I was kind of like, all right, God, let's just see where this goes. I sat down with my pastor and I told him, Apostle Matthew Stevenson, I said, man, things are going stinking well. I said, this girl is, she's everything and more so far that I've always wanted in a wife. And so he said, well, you need to get her to Chicago. So during that time, it was around October, we were about to get ready, preparing for our World Changers Conference. And so he was like, invite her to the conference and just, and y'all can meet face to face and really assess what God is doing. And so I prayed for an opportunity, and
he did ask me. This was just about a month into us, talking. He had mentioned it at one of our our Skype dates, and I was like, how am I going to get there in less than a month? How's this going to work out? But then he brought it up again, and there was two things that I told myself. I'm like, you know what? If my parents are in peace with it, and if they're cool with it, and then if my job, gives me that time off, So with that, I went and I told my parents, and they were just like, okay, sounds good. We trust you. It's going to be okay. And then I put in the time at my current job, and they gave me the day off with, short notice. So right then and there, I'm like, you know what? All of these things are kind of just aligning. And then even with that, his pastor and they actually they paid for half of my room. I had my ticket paid for and everything. So it was just like, God was saying, it's okay. Go ahead and walk right into it.
And so from there, once she accepted and agreed and everything was done for her to come to Chicago, we had about about 3 weeks in between that time, and we both agreed to not share anything that we felt like God was saying or any prophetic words, but we wanted to continue to get to know one another just as friends. And so we did that for 3 weeks, but I knew in my heart that once I saw her face to face, that I would know where this relationship was going. And so once once it came time for that weekend for her to visit, when she flew into Midway Airport and was coming down the escalator, and my eyes met hers, I knew that this was my wife. And it was just the most amazing peace that came over me, and it was just like a completion of, okay, I am holistically attracted to her from the place of emotionally and characteristically and personality, and I'm also physically attracted to this girl, and nothing could stop me from this moment of making her my wife.
And even with that, when I had came down the escalator to meet him, the first thing that actually drew me to him was just his smile, of course, and just his confidence that he had when I came down there, especially being in a state that I've never been in before, and just knowing right when I came down those stairs that I was going to be in good hands. It was just an instant peace. And even within that, when we were at the baggage claim, we had our first ministry opportunity together. It was like, just gave us like a vision, of our future together. And that was really special to me, because that's always, been in my heart, is whoever I marry, that, I want to be able, to love God with them, and to be able to love, people as well through, loving God. So.
Yeah, so once we left the airport, we went to, Lakeshore Drive to hang out, and she finally let go and released all her prophetic words, and I released all mine, and we both shared what God has spoken to both of us, and we both were just like, oh my goodness, God is setting this thing up.
And even during that time there, it was just a lot going on, where I was just like, Lord, give me a sign. What's going on? How is this supposed to go? But with that, it was like right before I went on the plane, and as I was saying bye to Jamal, it was like I just knew inside of my heart that, wow, this is different. It was like he was saying, I didn't bring you all the way here to Chicago, just to leave you and just to give you this experience, but not show you the completion of it. And when I got on that plane, my heart, I was just like, Lord, when I get home, I just want to hear from you. I want you to just, confirm, what I'm feeling and what I'm seeing. And when I got home, he gave me that. And I knew that he, that God had given me a special gift.
Yep, and I just kind of, I knew she was overwhelmed. I knew it was a lot for her to take in. Things are moving so fast, and it was just like, but it was that thing of when you know, and the peace of God, peace of God was so strongly there, and we both were just so blown away, at just, wow, this girl is everything, and that I've asked for.
And even more, it's even more too, to where you can have like lists and you can have all of these things that you want, but then God you look knows. At this person, God knows specifically what each and every one of us needs. And if we're willing to trust him and to look through his eyes at who he gives us, we're going to be able to see, how blessed we truly are.
Yeah, and so from there, I just really sat back and just allowed God to move on her heart. I knew that I was, that this was the one. And I was, I was very patient with her process of her finding that out for herself. And so end of November, I went to California and I met her family and got to sit down with her dad. And at this time, I had already purchased the engagement ring, and I had the picture of it on my phone. And so I'm sitting down with her dad and I'm telling him, hey, Mr. Ricky, I'm very serious about your daughter, and he's like, well, how serious? And I just slid the phone over to him and showed him the picture, and he was like, well, now we can talk, and he was very, very impressed with my ability to really lay things out for him. He asked me every question in the book: political party, budget, finances, family plans. Do I live what I preach? And I mean, it was just it was an amazing man-to-man talk, with her dad. And he was, the one thing he said, he goes, Jamal, I've never seen Natasha so happy my entire life, and I can't take that from her, and I cannot deny you, so I give you my blessing, and like I said, this is after, a month after we've seen each other, we get the blessing from her father,
Yes.
And her parents, and everyone's just like with us. And so we planned a trip for her to come meet my family.
Yes. So I came out here with Jamal to meet his family here in Louisiana. It was just such a beautiful time of coming into his world and seeing, where everything, started. And so as we were here, we had to get together where his friends and family came, and we had food and everything, and then Jamal and I went up and we shared our story. And during that time, as I was sharing, I had no idea. I was just sharing, like we just shared the platform and everything, and when I was finished, I was giving it back to him, and
I took it back over, and I had already pre-planned for her family to be on Skype. So once we shifted back into me just affirming her, I said I want to add on to this story. I got down on one knee, pressed the power button on the TV, and her family yells, "Hey, Natasha!"
I hear my mom's voice and
my
family's voice, and right then and there, like even when he just said my name different, he's like Natasha. I could just feel that the atmosphere had changed, and then when he put the video up, I knew, oh my gosh.
Yeah, this is it. So I get down on one knee, and I asked her to be my wife, and now we are engaged to marry.
Yeah.
And I said, and so it's been the most amazing ride of God's faithfulness, of God fulfilling promises. And so we wanted to just share this story for those of you out there that, are in the place of waiting on God.
Yes.
We want you to know that God is in control.
Yes.
And like we said, that we had a lot of things that we did, that really protected us.
Yes.
Which was, us having spiritual accountability from both ends, me getting approved with my spiritual father and different mentors on this whole process, and also, and also just simply the place of prayer. Everything we've done has been in a place of prayer and operating under the peace of God.
Yeah, and just follow peace. That's what I would encourage you all, especially when you're in relationships, is just allowing God to really form in you, what needs to be formed, and that it's worth the wait. Whatever your desire is, if you desire to be married, if you desire to have this job, if whatever it may be, you have to trust God. You have to truly let go and allow Him to take the wheel, because I just keep telling everybody he is so faithful, because Jamal is everything and more, and just to know that this is just the beginning, and that our futures together is going to be even greater, than what God's already done right now.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of it is once you put your situation in God's hands, He will fulfill the desires of your heart. And so we just want to encourage you with our story. It's been a great ride, and it's and we are excited about our future, like Natasha said.
And we just want to thank everyone, every single person that has prayed for us, every single person that has encouraged us, in our walk thus far and even into our future. We want to thank you for standing beside us and believing in us, and we just love you guys.
Yeah, we love you.
We love you.
Thank you, and be blessed.
Bye-bye.